Good afternoon, my name is Brad Trammell, and for today's report, I'd like to welcome you to the future. We have flying cars, we've eliminated disease, and now you can even buy JPEGs for the low price of a college education. I'm of course talking about NFTs, the newest trend in digital art that's sweeping the nation faster than Gangnam Style. The problem is, sometimes the future moves so fast, it can be difficult to understand what the fuck is actually going on. So I'm going to try to provide some clarity about NFTs by describing what they are, what art world developments led to this moment, and what my thoughts are about them. Because if you look a little closer, I think what you'll find is that NFTs are a pyramid scheme within a pyramid scheme that require investing in a speculative cryptocurrency for the chance to speculate on luxury art. Sometimes what looks like the future is really just the past repackaged on the blockchain. So join me as we delve into what exactly this scheme within a scheme really is. This is the NFT Report. Chapter 1. What are NFTs? Most explanations of NFTs try to confuse people into submission by using a bunch of nonsense technobabble. But as a recovering trauma victim from years of exposure to international art English, I'm going to give you the most direct explanation I can. NFTs are certificates of authenticity for digital art. Plain and simple. NFTs aren't the art itself, they're the certificates of authenticity for the art that allow people to see who originally made the art, who currently owns it, and how much it sold for. Every time the NFT changes hands, the new owner and the price paid is automatically recorded on the blockchain, which is a digital archive of transactions no one can alter and everyone can see. The idea is that by having these certificates of authenticity be publicly available for everyone to view online, NFTs can guarantee the provenance of the digital art they're connected to. See, wasn't so painful. I think the most common response people have to hearing about NFTs for the first time is, "That's pretty fucking stupid. Why would you bother buying art you can't even hold in your hands?" To which I'd respond, fair enough. But I think as an increasing amount of people come to understand their external reality and personal identity through digital interactions, it makes sense that digital ownership would become more normalized over time. You can't hold likes or followers either, but people certainly pay for digital possession of those things. Some people bring up this idea of not being able to hold the work as a way of defending the traditional art market and art objects, but the irony is that the traditional art market was the first one to normalize purely digital ownership through free ports, which are tax-free storage havens. These days, it's completely common for a collector in London to buy a work they saw over email and then have the work shipped from Los Angeles to the Delaware Freeport, where it sits in a darkened room as an asset on a computer spreadsheet. Once it's in the Freeport warehouse, the work can be sold from collector to collector a dozen times over without moving an inch or ever being seen in person. So the idea of contact-free sales happening digitally isn't exactly a new one in the art world. Of course, the difference is that in the case of Freeports, the art being sold is ultimately a physical object stored privately, whereas with NFTs, the art being sold is digital and publicly registered. This sets up the second most common question about NFTs, which is, how can a digital file, which is infinitely reproducible, be considered valuable? Can't I just screenshot the image and become the owner of it myself? And it's true, anyone's free to use digital images that have already been purchased. But think of it like this. Two people are standing in a house at the same time. One person is the homeowner, the other person is the guest. Functionally speaking, the guest can make use of the house in every way the owner can. The guest can go to bed, cook a meal, use a bathroom, whatever. What the guest can't do is sell the house because they lack the contractual right to do so. What NFTs do is formalize the relationship between the work, its creator, and its buyer so that ownership can be established for future sale. Technically speaking, every image can be reproduced infinitely, but that implies that there's people who actually want to reproduce it. Viral images, which we think of as common, are actually some of the most rare images there are for this reason. Because with millions of images uploaded and instantly forgotten about every second, viral images are the ones that have beaten the odds and somehow became visible. To be worthy of infinite reproduction means the greatest number of people have found the greatest amount of symbolic value in the image. That's why this whole conversation around art losing its value through reproduction is the opposite of how digital images obtain their value in the first place. NFTs are just the mechanism used to capture this ephemeral aura so it can be quantified and traded. So, what exactly are these images for sale? I think of NFTs as coming in 4 aesthetic categories. There's art world, deviant artist, celebrity artist, and meme NFTs. Art world NFTs are made by people who went to art school, who have a familiarity with art history and the quirky customs of the commercial art world. Deviant artist NFTs are made by people whose connection to art comes from online communities, where things like technical skill and self-expression are most valued. Celebrity artist NFTs are offered by celebrities who've commissioned an artist to create a representation of themselves for the purpose of art as merchandising. And finally, meme NFTs are offered by the unsung heroes who created our visual culture but never got credit for it. So let's take a closer look at these categories. Of the art world NFTs, a few were made by my fellow post-internet artists looking to reanimate the clout of their decade-old projects. Most of the post-internet NFT auctions didn't do so great because I think the problem with using nostalgia as a sales strategy is that there has to be a mass audience that collectively feels more nostalgia for the work than the creators feel for it. As a post-internet artist myself, the whole thing kind of took on the sad vibe of watching your friends lining up in front of a pawn shop as each one of them tried to convince the guy behind the counter that the authentic memorabilia they have is really worth 20 grand, to which the guy replied that $400 and a Red Lobster coupon was the best he could do. But the primary group of people releasing art world NFTs have been an even more nostalgically inclined group. I'm talking about the net art GIF artists, for whom NFTs have been most widely adopted. I haven't thought much about this type of art since my awkward days reading Art Fag City in 2009, when my hairline was about 2 inches forward. But these NFTs have shown us there are still apparently many people who make glitchy GIFs of abstract shapes spinning in a loop. In general, art world NFT creators are quick to separate themselves from the deviant artists by pointing out how they make awful, self-referential illustrations of crypto culture. Imagine Elon Musk wearing Deal With It shades as he rides a golden Doge all the way up to the moon. People rightfully sneer at this deviant artist NFT work because it's a transparent and cynical attempt to flatter the interests of crypto wealthy collectors. This isn't art made to see the world anew, it's art made as a hustlepreneur motivational poster. The problem with this distinction is that art world NFT creators are often doing just a slightly more sophisticated version of the same thing deviant artists are, which is to flatter the egos of people of cryptocurrency. As I mentioned, the typical art world NFT is an abstract metallic rendering floating in space. It's a kitschy approximation of the type of precious metal we know to be valuable in the real world, but this isn't real gold, it's digital gold. And we know this because the object doesn't obey gravity, which refers back to the 3D rendering software it was made with. And being both self-referentially valuable and self-referentially digital, the typical art world NFT image can be thought of as a visualization of the otherwise invisible cryptocurrency itself. This is a whole different level of flattery because it allows people of cryptocurrency the chance to visualize their own wealth by providing them with a symbolically and financially exchangeable placeholder for that wealth. By spending their crypto, they finally get to see an artist's rendering of what their beautiful crypto looks like in heaven. What a gift! This leads us to celebrity NFTs, which offer the chance to own an aestheticized token of their namesake's fame. This is a new frontier for merchandising because it allows every celebrity the chance to create luxury art objects. For a celebrity to become an artist, it used to mean a kind of PR pivot was necessary, a symbolic act of contrition that renounced the source of their celebrity in favor of a simple life as an artist humbly working in their studio. This was always a futile effort because celebrities can never escape from their own celebrity, not even in death. This is why celebrity art is always de facto self-portraiture, because the only reason anyone pays attention to this typically shitty work is because of the well-known identity of the person who made it. The difference is that while old celebrity art used to try to assimilate into the art world, new celebrity art NFTs are expected to bring the art world into the celebrity's brand as yet another offering in their line of merchandise. People don't expect the NFT to be made by the celebrity, they expect the NFT to accurately represent the celebrity. Edward Snowden, ASCII hacker text art, of course, Supreme Patty, a swagged out digital rendering, Trisha Paytas, Cole's Family Portrait Studio, everything in its right place. If celebrity NFTs are the names we know making images we've never seen, then meme NFTs are the images we know made by names we've never heard. Apparently, all those memes we've been sharing all these years were in fact made by people. And many of these people are now understandably looking to NFTs as a chance to finally be paid for their work that practically everyone else has profited on aside from them. I'm talking about canonical memes like Pepe the Frog, Nyan Cat, Overly Attached Girlfriend. Of the four categories, meme NFTs are probably the most coherent application of NFT technology. Memes are digitally native, they have legitimately popular audiences, they truly influence the course of visual culture, and unlike art world NFTs, their creators have never had a chance to offer their work for sale until now, which means that there's a group of buyers eager to pay them back for all the fond memories and a chance to own history. Chapter 2. How did we get here? Given their meteoric rise, it can feel like NFTs just came out of nowhere, but the truth is that NFTs' success are the result of two art world developments that have been brewing for over a decade, which are A, the crisis of museum connoisseurship, and B, the relationship between the art world and Silicon Valley. First, let's talk about the crisis of museum connoisseurship, which refers to American art museums' loss of control over collectors' taste and spending habits, which led to the NFT market we have today. We can think of the traditional art market as a table held up by four legs. You've got the artists, dealers, collectors, and museums. Artist makes the work, dealer shows the work, collector buys the work, and the museum validates the work. If an influential collector buys the work, then other collectors want to buy it and other dealers want to sell it. The only problem is, as art's prices go up and up, it means that fewer and fewer people can afford it. A painting previously thought of as a casual investment at $3,000 becomes a very serious investment at $1 million. Traditionally, it's at this point that collectors want to be sure that the art they're investing in has a future beyond a short-term bubble. This speculative instability is where museums come in. In the traditional art world, they're the fourth leg of the table that makes sure the whole thing keeps standing as you continue to stack more money on top of it. Museums act as the guarantor for art's rising price. The more museum shows an artist has, the safer it is to buy their work. It's almost like a credit rating agency. Museums are seen as being run by impartial observers who've professionally studied art's past so they can objectively help determine art's future. This is all, of course, bullshit. Museums aren't separate from collectors' interests, but inextricably linked to them. And they tell you so much every chance they get, because on every building, underneath every artwork, and on top of every water fountain is plastered the name of a collector whose donation affords them influence over the programming. The objectivity of museums is a lie, but it's a lie that's been told long enough to be useful for everyone involved. And what makes museums useful is that they provide a bureaucracy for collectors who want to influence what art will become valuable long term. So, while museums aren't objective forces that regulate the art market, they are, at very least, stabilizing forces. They're ruled by committee, they're subject to some form of academic oversight, they move slowly and plan shows years in advance. In this way, they at very least function as a counterbalance to the speed and recklessness of art market speculation. Museums aren't separate from collectors, they're committees of longtime collectors coming together to broker power and collectively determine what art they deem worthy of a price increase through a retrospective exhibition. This is all a slow and genteel form of price fixing that some of the world's largest art collectors have decided is no longer necessary by opening their own private museums where they can exact complete control over programming. Enter the Broad Museum, the Brandt Foundation, the Rebel Collection, CIFO, Mana Contemporary. The list is endless. When the people doing the majority of buying in the art market all have their own museums, their purchasing power becomes indecipherable from museum validation. The separation between church and state that once existed, aka the helpful lie that art museums' connoisseurial authority was built on, is eliminated in the process. But the downward spiral doesn't end there. This increased competition from private museums has led many public museums to do credibility-destroying shows they believe will earn them blockbuster ticket sales. The types of lowbrow shows they wouldn't have been caught dead doing 2 decades ago. Where museums once looked to teach young collectors proper connoisseurial taste, they now look to mirror young collectors' pre-existing taste. In the past decade, museums have effectively said, the customer is always right, so many times that the customers finally turned around and said, you know what? I am right. I don't need your help. This loss of trust in museums as tastemakers is what set the stage for NFT platforms to come in and cut the middleman so collectors can finally buy directly from artists without seeking connoisseurial approval. The thing is, young collectors have been buying straight from artists, and they've been doing it through vinyl toy collecting, streetwear, sneakers, and limited edition posters. They've been buying directly from artists who have fandoms, because it's the buyer confidence instilled by these fandoms that have replaced museum connoisseurship as defining young collectors' taste. To some extent, fandoms can be thought of as institutions because they perform a lot of the same roles museums do, just without a centralized bureaucracy. Fandoms support their favorite artists. They collect and preserve relics. They trace the influences of artists' work. They promote artists' new work. They're how people share in-person experiences together. Like museums before them, fandoms ensure that in the future, someone, somewhere, will know and care about the artist. Fandoms are what propelled artists like KAWS, Banksy, Daniel Arsham, Friends with You, Alec Monopoly, Shepard Fairey, just to name a few, all to the top of the market. It's this crew of post-taste, too-big-to-fail street artists who set the stage for this new crew of post-taste, too-big-to-fail NFT artists. What they showed is that when you're a truly popular artist, not just an invention of academic curators, it's actually possible to find more people to continue paying higher prices for your work because there are so many millions of people who are aware of you. Where before, artist prices would eventually need to be guaranteed by a museum's approval, these new artists are guaranteed through their fan bases instead. Art's crisis of museum connoisseurship had been simmering for a decade before Beeple showed up and sold an NFT of digital dick sketches to his fandom for $69 million. But it was this moment that forced everyone to collectively ask, who the fuck is steering this ship anymore? Beeple's massive auction didn't start this shift in power, but it was a clear indicator to everyone watching that museums were no longer in control over what art collectors were willing to speculate on. It also showed that fandoms, not museums, are now defining what art is popularly discussed. This all set the stage for NFT platforms who recognize this change and look to seize on the fact that the tail is now wagging the dog. The other development that set the stage for NFTs has been the relationship between the art world and Silicon Valley. In hindsight, the way these two groups came together seems almost poetic, the way they'd been searching for each other for years, only to find love when they least expected it. I'm of course talking about the way the art market had been pining for Silicon Valley's money, and how Silicon Valley's cryptocurrency has long been seeking an aesthetic purpose. Because for the past decade, the art world has viewed Silicon Valley as the great cash-stuffed whale they could never quite catch. This is because every time there's a new infusion of money to any particular location, the art world is sure to be not far behind, eager to offer those newly wealthy citizens dynamic opportunities for asset management with positive rates of return in tax-friendly storage facilities. This is why the New York art world has been flocking to Asia for the past decade to set up blue-chip galleries and art fairs around the rapid influx of billionaires who now live there. But during that time, there was another ascendant site of wealth and global political power even closer to home. On paper, Silicon Valley is a far more likely pairing with the New York-centered art world. I mean, think of it. The travel and shipping costs are lower, they share the same government, speak the same language, they're all a bunch of neoliberal yuppies. It looked like the perfect match. The only problem was these Silicon Valley people did not want to buy art. And I should know, because I was there. I attended the Silicon Valley Art Fair in 2014 because I was exhibiting work there. And it was a fucking ghost town. All the galleries brought their most tech-adjacent artists to show off as a kind of olive branch to the tribal interests of the savage locals. But the only problem was the locals didn't even bother to show up. Over the years, all types of reasons have been given for the art world's inability to connect with Silicon Valley as new collectors. Some people said it was a culture clash, that Silicon Valley types understand creation through the lens of startups. So if they're going to invest in a young creator, it's likely going to be a person making an app instead of making a painting. Some said the very idea of art as a functionless curiosity was seen as pointless to a group obsessed with utility. But if you drank enough beer and shot specials with an art dealer at that failed art fair, you might get an even more brutally honest reason for the disconnect, which is that Silicon Valley people aren't cool or sexy or hip or any of the vibes the art world traffics in. They're fucking nerds, and they're nerds who became very wealthy by being themselves, by being nerdy, the bohemian flanneurship of being in the art world, of attending fairs and openings and dinners. This is all for people who want to be seen and talk about nothing in particular. But if you've built an entire culture around ascetic technocratic competency, then none of these art world social customs would be particularly appealing. And I don't blame them. Meanwhile, as the art world searched in vain for Silicon Valley's money, it was Silicon Valley's newly invented form of money, called cryptocurrency, that was searching for something too. Cryptocurrency has long been called a solution looking for a problem to solve, which is a nice way of saying that it's effectively fucking useless. Cryptocurrency's most useful application is for things like money laundering, black market sales, and tax evasion, but those aren't exactly the types of things you can market to normies. Supporters always say cryptocurrency is really just like any other type of money, just without the convenience of being able to spend it at your local grocery store, or to pay your rent, or to pay your student loans, or to use it for any of the other things people regularly use money for. The fact that cryptocurrency isn't intuitively easy to obtain, and that once you do obtain it, you can't do anything with it, has been a major hurdle in its widespread adoption. These factors, in addition to its rapidly fluctuating price, are why most people rightfully view cryptocurrency's main function to be a speculative investment. And like any other speculative investment, the idea is that you buy in, wait until the price goes up, then you sell it. But the question is, why would the price of cryptocurrency ever go up when it offers people the ability to do so little? In other words, what is the incentive for someone to exchange their normal fiat money for crypto? Well, as a kind of tautology, the only thing you can offer people through cryptocurrency is the chance to make money, if they're able to convince other people it's a chance to make money too. This is why crypto culture places such a huge emphasis on recruitment, and why the people who are invested in crypto never seem to, for a second, shut the fuck up about it. Whether it's through memes or music or status updates, people of cryptocurrency think of the world as their stage to evangelize, while kindly treating us to minute-by-minute portfolio updates. How cool is that? This non-stop evangelism is partially thanks to social media exerting pressure on us to talk about literally anything at all times. But there's a more direct incentive for turning yourself into a human billboard for crypto, which is that talking about it to anyone who will listen increases the chances that they'll invest in it too. You see, there's no money to be made in being the last person to trade your dollars in for crypto. So you have to convince people to get into crypto after you to make any money from it. This emphasis on recruitment is a hallmark of pyramid schemes, which are a fraud investment strategy where people make money by unloading expensive inventories of useless junk on one another for compounding prices. Sound familiar? For a while, cryptocurrency relied on recruiting people to join as a pure expression of political ideology. That crypto investment was how you could make an anarcho-capitalist utopia come to life. This proved to have a strong appeal to a fedoraed few, but ultimately a limited appeal to most people in the reality-based community. The one thing all great pyramid schemes recognized was that you couldn't just convince people to buy in for buying in's sake alone. You had to at least pretend your scheme offered the ability to do something with the inventory, whether that was through scam diet pills, cheap makeup, or useless protein powder. So people tried to invent things to do with crypto. And one of the first recreational purposes to really take off for crypto was CryptoKitties in 2017, which was a blockchain game run on Ethereum that allowed players to purchase, collect, and breed and sell virtual cats. The crucial invention here is that because CryptoKitties operated on Ethereum's blockchain network as a non-fungible token unique to each CryptoKitty, it meant that the use of cryptocurrency was the only way players could participate. It wasn't an alternative option to using dollars, it was the money. At the time, CryptoKitties was thought to be a massive success. The game's popularity in December 2017 congested the Ethereum network, causing it to reach an all-time high in the number of transactions. In hindsight, CryptoKitties was a crude proof of concept for how to create a collector market for purely aesthetic goods. By comparison, you can see how the later NFT art platforms like Nifty Gateway, Super Rare, and Foundation were positioned for success. CryptoKitties only offered a visually limited set of items that were related to their own hermetically sealed world of 8-bit cat breeding, whereas NFT art platforms offered the aesthetically limitless world of art, a commodity that, unlike digital cats, already had the cachet of being collectible, valuable, and prestigious to own. CryptoKitties were just inanimate creations of the game's designers, but behind every NFT artwork for sale was a living, breathing artist. This meant that the new recruitment team for cryptocurrency would be the artists selling their wares on the NFT platforms, giving cryptocurrency an army of new evangelists overnight who were highly motivated and deeply experienced in the creation of visual promotion. Through the NFT platforms, the two worlds had finally merged. Silicon Valley would give the art world its money if the art world agreed to use the in-house crypto cash Silicon Valley had invented. And in exchange, cryptocurrency would finally be given a purpose by adopting visual art and its built-in recruitment culture of self-promotional hustlepreneurs. Collectors who no longer believed in the connoisseurial authority of museums now had the perfect stage to express their speculative buying power in private without having to go to silly events. It was all systems go. Chapter 3. My thoughts on NFTs. The easiest way to visualize NFTs is to think of a pyramid scheme within a pyramid scheme. The NFT art market is a way of recreating the same power dynamics of the traditional art world by making sure that everyone who participates in it also has to pay a cryptocurrency entry fee beforehand. It's an idea so wild, I wish I came up with it. This is why, when it comes to NFTs, their true product isn't art, but the cryptocurrency Ether itself. Because in order to mint, buy, or sell the art, you have to buy the cryptocurrency first in order to do so, which means that whether the art is sold or not, the crypto has already been bought, and it's unlikely the crypto will ever be traded back into dollars. That's the scheme within the scheme, and it's why artists have never been the intended beneficiary of NFTs. The people who stand to gain the most from NFTs' widespread adoption have always been the investors with enormous cryptocurrency holdings, Ether in particular. These are the people who recognized early on that the best way to spur on the use of the crypto platforms they own that rely on the cryptocurrency they're invested in would be to create the impression of a massive gold rush. This is why, when you look through all the top bidders for all the splashiest NFT auction results, you'll inevitably find one thing in common among them. They all run companies that promote Ethereum-based transactions. There's a couple reasons for this. The first is that these crypto barons recognize the invaluable amount of press coverage Ethereum would receive in exchange for just a few splashy auction results. Take the $69 million Beeple auction, for example, which was purchased by Metacoven, a duo that are estimated to own as much as $1 billion in Ether. This auction was covered in every magazine, every news network, every newspaper, basically in the world. I mean, how many more people do you think started using Ether as a result of this auction? How many artists rushed in to create their own NFT after seeing this, hoping to be the next person to win the crypto lottery? Because while you can't entirely attribute it to just one auction result, the price of Ether did rise from $1,800 to $2,600 from the day of that auction to just a little over a month later. That's a 40% increase in that cryptocurrency's trading value. What this means is that if Metacoven was holding just 1/5 of the $1 billion of Ether people estimate they do, then their $69 million purchase paid for itself thanks to the price increase of Ether that their own purchase started. And this is all thanks to the media attention it received. The other reason for these splashy auction results is that the money's cheap and there's not much else to do with it. If you were an early investor in Ether and watched its value grow 100x, then going on Foundation and dropping the equivalent to $10,000 just doesn't mean much relative to the total amount of money you now suddenly have. So if you're in a position where your spending power has exponentially increased, but the number of opportunities you have to spend the Ether are just as few as they were before, then you might wind up spending a little more money than you otherwise would in one of the few places where you're able to ball out by using crypto as a form of payment. And this is the aim of the NFT platforms, to pair cash-drunk crypto investors with cash-strapped artists while making money from both sides. NFT platforms' emphasis on making money from artists is so intense that the most common price point for NFT art sold, which is $100, actually leads to $100.50 in fees for the artist to pay. Yes, you heard that correctly. Artists who sell their work as an NFT can reasonably expect to lose money if the work sells for an affordable price, all thanks to a merciless assortment of hidden fees. This, despite the fact that these platforms are all marketed as a way for artists to empower themselves, just shows how cynically aware they are of artists' precarity and how vulturously willing they are to take advantage of. Think of it like this. If you showed most BFA-educated artists a sketchy flyer for a random European gallery asking artists to pay a $200 application fee for the chance to be in a group show, they'd probably all say, "Fuck off, that's obviously a scam." But if you showed those same artists the same flyer and slapped the Foundation Gradient logo on top of it, a lot of artists would jump head over heels at the chance to strike it big. So why is this? Well, it could be because people have a tendency to view all technological developments as a form of progress. And because of this, we tend to confuse what is new for what is good. When it comes to NFTs, it's worth asking, what is new about non-fungible tokens? Because when I look at NFTs, what I see is a scheme within a scheme that uses the sheen of technological newness to conceal the fact that it's offering the same art world we already have. Because for NFT platforms, the concept of art patronage in its newest, most technologically advanced model still means waiting for the odd chance to be paid a luxury sum by a criminal for a single artwork at a time. It still means artists operating through middlemen who take anywhere from 50 to 100% of their earnings. Take, for example, the fact that so many NFT platforms offer artists a 10% cut of the future secondary sales of their work, which is so often heralded as one of the novel technological developments of Ethereum smart contracts. And while this sounds like a positive development, it's effectively window dressing for NFT platforms' brands. This is because 99% of art never resells for more than it was initially purchased for. So 10% of $0 is still going to be $0. The only artists who've been missing out on this 10% are the ones who are already doing exceedingly well from primary sales, because there's no artist in existence whose work barely sells for a few $100s on the primary market, but miraculously sells for millions on the secondary market. If that were the case, why wouldn't the collector just buy the exponentially cheaper work on the primary? Those two numbers are tied together. So unless your work is already selling for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, then a 10% resale cut would have never applied to you anyway. And while an infinitesimal number of already successful artists will ever enjoy this 10% resale cut, NFT platforms' emphasis on this 10% does serve an important purpose, which is to provide artists an insurance policy for the dream of their future success. Like so many things in the promotional materials for these platforms, it's a way of getting you to think about all the money you stand to make in the future if you just keep paying a few $100s of upfront costs, if you just keep promoting that NFT auction platform on social media, and if you just keep buying a little more Ether all the time. One unspoken aspect of NFT platforms marketing is the idea that capital outpaces labor, that someone trading GameStop stock stands to make more money more quickly than someone working behind the counter at a GameStop store. For NFT platforms, the pitch is that you can turn your own art into a sleek financial instrument, a frictionless digital asset available for instantaneous speculation, just as a stock would work. The thing is, artists are not the capitalists in this scenario. They're still the laborers who are doing the grunt recruitment effort to increase the price of the Chuck E. Cheese tokens the company town runs on. And this is what the core problem really is. As you exponentially raise prices for speculative investments, both art and crypto alike, you run out of people who are willing to be the last one holding the bag, which can only lead to more complicated and unstable configurations of who's holding what. Some of the more creative businesses of late have recognized this problem with art's high cost to buy in, which has led to art's financialization through companies that offer physical artworks in the form of fractional shares. The idea is that if you can't find any new buyers for a $5 million painting, then maybe you can find 1,000 new investors who are willing to pay $5,000 each for a share of it. As they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. In typically accelerated fashion, the NFT art world has already financialized itself. Meet MetaPurse, a company founded by the same duo who bought the $69 million Beeple. MetaPurse has an incredible investment opportunity for you because they own not one expensive NFT, but 13 different multi-million dollar NFTs. They've packaged together as an index fund you can invest in. And guess what? If you don't have enough Ether in the bank to invest, you can always use the NFTs you've already purchased as collateral to take out a loan from them to invest in their even larger NFT bundle. Imagine that. A series of speculative investments bundled together to become a speculative investment, paid for with speculative investments as collateral. If only there was some historical precedent for this, or at very least, a fitting visual metaphor. Of course, there's probably no better metaphor to sum up the way the worst aspects of the past are being repackaged to us as the future than the process of proof-of-work crypto mining itself. In both name and function, mining refers to the ancient process of wasting energy by smashing rocks for hours on end in the hope that something valuable randomly falls out of them. As Memo Atkins said, proof of work is designed to be computationally inefficient. Its security comes from the fact that it requires so much computation to write to the blockchain. The logic is that if it's so stupendously difficult to write to the blockchain, then it can't be done frequently enough to pose a security threat. You might see articles refer to this task as solving a math puzzle. This is a vast romanticization. In reality, to write to a proof-of-work blockchain and reap a reward of the associated cryptocurrency, one has to generate a random number and hope that it matches the criteria set by the protocol. If it doesn't match, generate another random number. For this reason, endless arrays of computers are sitting around in giant data center-like mining farms around the world, doing nothing but generating random numbers all day, every day. Or to put the whole process more simply, imagine if keeping your car idling 24/7 produced solved Sudokus you could trade for heroin. It's amazing to me that the most permanent thing these cryptocurrencies materially produce are loads of environmental damage through wasted energy, because crypto's creators had the ability to invent a world from scratch, and they chose to destroy the planet in the process. I mean, I'd call NFTs a failure of imagination if I actually thought the people running these platforms wanted to change the art world. What they want to do is migrate the existent art world to a new digital territory, a territory where they own the shops and they own the currency you use to pay them. And in exchange for this location swap, the promise is to allow you to feel the forward momentum of technological progress, that things are changing for the better because you get to use new made-up words and use new complicated money to appeal to wealthy strangers yet again. So, as you sit on your laptop figuring out how to convert your Biden stimulus check into Ether for a chance to sell a GIF you made in 2011, you might have some time to think before that life-changing bid on Foundation shows up. You might hear the creak of your door open and cast a shaft of light on your face as you rub the sleep out of your eyes. It turns out you were waiting for that bid for so long you accidentally passed out. you'll hear an old, genteel voice beckoning from the traditional art world you thought you left behind, and it'll ask you, "Are you winning yet, son?"